A call for Easy English relates to similar policies and legislations as for the website and document accessibility and based on human rights, namely the Federal Disability Discrimination Act 1992, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. Whilst the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, and specifically Principle 3, Understandable, with 3.1, Readable, are necessary for a AAA standard in terms of accessibility, they still may not be sufficient to meet all the needs of everybody. Other legislations and policies, such as the Australian Government Digital Guides, the NDIA Act, and various state legislations draw on the WCAG guidelines in stressing the importance of having materials available for all, but they do not quite go far enough in specifying Easy English. This is partly because, but also why, there are no definitive rules about Easy English. There are so many individual factors involved. Research is being conducted to compare documents to determine what are the common practices, but what suits one person with disability may not suit another. Very crucially, the ultimate guiding principle is from the consumers themselves. The cornerstone to development of written materials is that access to information is a fundamental human right. One document will not fit all. For some of our documents, there needs to be a suite of documents. As we will soon see, there is an alarming proportion of our population who don't have a high enough level of literacy to understand a lot of the written information that they are faced with in their day-to-day lives, so making a document accessible may not be enough. We need to fully understand the needs of all of our readers, as well as the most effective ways of reaching them. Now, who is it that needs Easy English? In addition to those with a print disability, for full inclusivity, we also need to consider who else might need help to access and understand written materials. We have a very diverse population in Australia in terms of culture, language, and ability. If we think about people with dyslexia who have difficulty decoding the written words into their shapes and sounds and may be helped by accessibility features, there are others who have difficulty further on in the comprehension process. These are people who have difficulty understanding the structure and actual meaning of written words in sentences and longer texts, and require changes to the complexity of language and layout. These may be people with an intellectual disability, people who have cognitive impairments such as from stroke. It may also include people with low English language literacy levels, that is, people with English as a second, third or fourth language, and they may or may not have more functional levels of literacy in their other languages. It may include some sign language users. Then there are people who have had reduced exposure to the complexities of written English language, which may include Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. If we now consider this in terms of numbers and literacy levels, here we have a column graph of the proportion of the Australian population across 6 levels of literacy. The statistics are provided through the Australian Bureau of Statistics from the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, or PIAC, in 2011-12. It's a fairly normal graph in that the majority are in the middle, around literacy levels 2 and 3, and wane towards each end, but it is skewed to the left. I'm going to describe the right-hand side of the graph and then the left. So the majority, at 38% of Australian readers, that's about 6.4 million people, are able to understand written material at a Year 9 level, which is level 3 on this graph. Approximately 14%, or 2.4 million people, can read at a university bachelor's degree level, which is level 4 on this graph, and a mere 1.2% of the population can read at level 5. This level requires very specialised background knowledge to select key information and make very high-level inferences. For example, and it would include our lawyers and judges and other specialists. At the other side, we have 30%, that's 5 million people, who can read at a level 2, which means that they may be able to paraphrase and make low-level inferences and distinguish unnecessary information, and may be able to navigate within digital texts to access or identify information. This does not mean that the reader has functional literacy. Then we have 10% or 1.7 million people at level 1 who can manage short, simple digital or print texts for one piece of information and recognise basic vocabulary. For example, someone who does 15 minutes of reading per day. They may need to enter personal information onto a document. They may read labels and bills and recognise basic personally related information. Then we have 3.7% or 620,000 people at below level 1. They have only basic vocabulary knowledge and do not make use of features specific to digital texts, so they have difficulty relating to electronic material. When we consider that even newspapers are typically aimed at a Year 9 level, this means that 44% of Australians at levels 2, 1 and below level 1 have difficulty reading materials at an everyday level, that is, are insufficiently equipped to have functional literacy skills.